Hello, this is Bill. That's me over on the left-hand side of the screen. That's my grandmother, Cora Reet, and we're at Minersville Reservoir just getting ready to hit the beach and do a little fishing. This is a little panoramic view of the area around there. As you can see, there's really not much to look at, but that's kind of what it was. So here we are loading up with our snacks and lunch and getting ready to head down to the beach. Grandpa would follow along with the chairs in just a couple of seconds behind us. Minersville Reservoir was an area just outside of Beaver. When we would go down there, we would stay in a little motel there on the very far south end of Beaver and eat breakfast at the little cafe across the street. It was quite a treat. Here I am in the water with my little stick and fishing line, doing my best to catch a fish or two. Not very successful that trip. There's Grandma sitting in her chair, and me in the background there. And again, Minersville Reservoir. Now we're going to jump over to Schofield. Right there in the shot is my Aunt Yopi, Tante Yopi. My grandmother is just coming into frame there, and she's a little embarrassed because she's not dressed the way she wants to be for filming. That's my Uncle Jan. You can't see his head quite yet, but there he is. And the white-haired gentleman in the background is my Uncle Henry Chase. I was named for Henry, my middle name being Henry. That's the outhouse there at Tom's Boat Camp. It was run by a gentleman by the name of Tom Madsen. Grandma is sitting there in her little in our little 14-foot or 12-foot fishing boat. She didn't really like that boat. I think primarily because my grandfather kind of dunked her in it. They were trying to bring it on the beach, and she leaned the wrong direction, and he pushed that same direction, and over she went. Fortunately, she was just there at the beach and just got wet. This is our cabin up on the Weber River, just below Smith and Morehouse, over on the road between Oakley and Smith and Morehouse. Cabin didn't have any indoor plumbing or bathrooms, anything like that. We brought water with us, and we brought that water in 1-gallon glass jars. Here you can see my brother John, he's the taller one, and myself carrying those jugs of water into the cabin for us to use during the time that we were there. I remember those jugs being very, very heavy. Looks like I'm probably maybe 4 or 5 in this particular shot. John would be 6 or 7. There were no real trees in the area right close by the cabin, and Grandma wanted trees, so that was what we planted there. Unfortunately, they didn't have a lot of water, and they didn't do well. Here we are doing a little bit of copying Grandpa. He was probably in the cabin doing some carpentry work or some kind of work, and we were helping by going outside and cutting wood away from where he was. Here we're playing with frisbees. Frisbees had just come out at the time. The Whammo Frisbee was the new rage. And we're walking up the road coming back from fishing. We had been down fishing the Weber River, which is probably only about maybe a third, half of a mile down there, but for those little tiny short legs, that was quite a hike. And here we are bringing the empty glass jugs back to the car to take them down the road to where there was water to refill them so we could bring them back up for the day's use and to put some water on the trees. There were a lot of jugs, and we carried a lot of jugs back and forth between the car. And here we are filling the jugs and watering the trees that Grandma had planted. Again, that was the only water that they got. I think the deer up there really liked them, and they didn't get a lot of water, so they really didn't do anything. They pretty much died. And here's Grandma making sure that we poured the water correctly. Mostly I think she was making sure that we got it actually on the trees and not next to them. As I said, lots and lots and lots of glass jugs that we carried water back and forth. Here we are fishing on the Weber River. That's down where the main road crossed over the Weber, and just up from there, about a third of a mile, as I said, was probably about a third of a mile was our cabin. Grandma practiced casting a lot. She wanted to make sure that she could cast further than anybody else, because that's where the fish were. Back in the day, Bridal Veil Falls had a tram that went from the parking lot up to a little restaurant up at the top there. I have no idea why we had a man with a mule there, but there he is. And this would be Bridal Veil Falls, probably later in the spring, early in the summer. That's a pretty impressive runoff for the falls there. Again, Bridal Veil Falls in Provo Canyon. It was a pretty popular place to stop and see the sights, and the parking lot was pretty busy, so we had to hold hands. Again, Provo Canyon. Thanks for watching.